Hours of wrangling have finally produced an agreement at the climate change conference in Bali. But it only came after the United States bowed to international pressure and dropped its opposition to a compromise deal on greenhouse gas emissions. Delegates have now agreed to launch negotiations on the deal by 2009 to succeed the Kyoto Protocol. And the Environment Secretary, Hilary Benn, says after all the problems, the agreement is very welcome indeed.
What we've just achieved here in Bali is an historic breakthrough. This is something that people would have thought was impossible only 12 months ago. For the first time ever, we have agreement on the part of all of the countries of the world, the European Union, the G77 countries, countries like India and China, the United States of America, that we are now going to launch from Bali negotiations over the next 2 years to reach a new deal to replace the Kyoto Protocol to tackle dangerous climate change. This agreement has been made possible because of the science, the clarity of the message we're hearing from the scientists, but it's also been made possible by political will, and that's what we've seen demonstrated in Bali here today. And it shows that when we put our minds to it, we can change things. President Yudhoyono said when he came to address us this morning that the last mile of a marathon is the hardest, and that's certainly been true of what's happened this morning, but we've got there, we've made it over the finishing line.
Let's go live to Catherine Jacob, who's in Bali for us. And Catherine, the Environment Secretary, clearly very pleased with the progress made. How's it going down with environmentalists there, though?
Yes, as expected, Hilary Benn, of course, coming out with some very positive comments about the content, anyway, of what they've agreed here in Bali. But I have to say that's not the case as far as the environmentalists go. Yes, of course, they're pleased that they have now a Bali roadmap which will lead towards negotiations in 2009, ultimately, to replace the Kyoto Protocol. But what they're not pleased about is that they say that the Americans have continuously tried to wreck this process. They did so, they claim anyway, again today. Finally, there was a U-turn by the United States this morning. Had that not happened, we may not have had any agreement at all. As it stands, we do have an agreement, but many claim it is watered down. The fact is, there isn't very much science in it. The science, the recommendations of the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, about short-term emission target reductions for industrialised countries, they have gone from the main body of the text, and they are now quite literally a footnote. That's because the United States found them unpalatable. Well, to get some perspective from the United States, I'm joined by an American campaigner, Ben Wickler. Ben, what's your thought about what's happened here?
Well, today was kind of a mini breakthrough. It was the most minor miracle that you can imagine. And the reason I say that is, when we woke up this morning, it seemed like nothing was going to happen. And as the hours went on, it seemed like the talks were collapsing. And we thought everyone was going to go home with zero progress made and several steps back. And then finally, at the last moment, the United States caved. And then another thing happened, which is the countries that have signed the Kyoto Protocol, not like the United States, agreed to refer the cuts. So, you know, there's something to be said here. And I should apologize, I'm losing my voice, but I feel like the world found its voice today.
Okay, well, there you go. Al Gore was here, of course, the other day, saying that back home in the United States, on the ground, people really want a strong agreement. They wanted a strong agreement, and they don't support what George Bush is doing. Is that the case?
Absolutely, yeah. Bush is isolated not just from the rest of the world, but from his own people. And what I found among the campaigning groups here, people realize that it's not the people of the United States that are causing these problems. You know, it's the Bush administration specifically that's anti-science, and while it may not believe in evolution, believes so strongly in fossil fuels that it refuses to cut its use of them.
What do you think the Bush administration's tactic was here then? Stalling, then saying they weren't going to sign up, and then eventually kind of coming into the process to huge applause, actually. Are they the scenes that we're going to see on American television today?
Well, I think you're probably going to see the United States representative here being booed very loudly, and then South Africa denouncing the United States and being applauded, and then finally the United States coming around and doing the right thing, signing on to, very watered down, but signing on to an agreement and getting applauded again. The U.S. has gone on this sort of funny weaving track. It arrived, said all these nice things, seemed like they were really going along, and then the mask slipped off on about Monday. They've been provoking countries into objecting to all kinds of different parts of it. They've been roadblocking things they can't get other people to block. So it seemed like the U.S. was determined to wreck the whole negotiations process. Now, thanks to incredibly strong spine from the developing countries and also from the EU, the United States has caved, and also thanks to pressure from people in the U.S. U.S. has caved, Canada caved, Russia, Australia had an election, totally changed its own course. It's a breakthrough.